Okay, everybody, welcome back to the DanaBuckler Show. My name is Dana, and I am pleased to welcome back for the first time in, my goodness, it's been over a year, one of the true great friends of the DanaBuckler Show and one of the contributing hosts to the podcast that inspired me to want to become a podcast, F This Movie. Please welcome back the one and only Adam Riske. Adam, welcome back. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, thank you for having me back, especially for this episode. And it's always wonderful to talk to you. So I'm flattered to be asked to return.
Oh, listen, it's one of my all-time favorite people to have on the show. These conversations are always really a lot of fun, and I've been excited. I know we've been kind of bouncing back and forth on dates to get this done, but here we are. We're recording, and I couldn't be happier. So
I've said it before, but just the opportunity to listen to your smooth, silky voice for like an hour plus, we could be talking about tires. I don't even mind.
I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say.
I know it's one of those compliments where you're just like, what?
when I had the author of Opposable Thumbs, the book about Matt. I had him on the show last year. Yeah. And that was the very first thing he said. He goes, "You got a really good radio voice." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Well, thank you. Let's talk Siskel and Ebert." So, but I appreciate that. Thank you. So, like the episode says, we're going to be talking John Travolta, but we're going to do something a little bit different. Okay. Mm-hmm. Everybody, including myself, has done shows where we talk about our top 10 favorite John Travolta movies, but we want to dig just a little bit deeper. All right. Mm-hmm. You know what? There are definitive John Travolta films out there, but his IMDb credits go way past 10 films. And I wanted you to come on because I knew if there was one person out there that could compile a really diverse list of Travolta films that are worth checking out, it's you. So, Adam, before we get into what's initially going to be your top 10, and then we're going to do the 11 through 20,
yeah,
what does John Travolta mean to you?
He's one of the first actors where I just immediately got it. Like I saw him on screen for the first time in a movie that I'll talk about a little bit later, but I was 7 years old and it was 1989 and my parents took me to see Look Who's Talking. And from the moment he pulls up in the cab to pick up Kirstie Alley, I was just like, I like this guy. He's funny. He seems nice. And to a 7-year-old, that is very important. And he just won me over completely in that movie. And then, during my adolescence, like it was the whole Look Who's Talking trilogy. So I followed that the whole way through. And then he kind of was also responsible for the bridge to me from watching movies that were like PG-13 and under to R-rated movies and independent cinema, because this is sort of embarrassing, but like when Pulp Fiction came out, I wanted to see Pulp Fiction so bad because there was a trailer for it on the VHS for The Crow, and I watched The Crow all the time. And Pulp Fiction became like my most anticipated movie because of that trailer. And my parents saw it and they were like, "You're a little too young for it." And that was surprising because like I was already watching some R-rated movies like from Blockbuster and things like that at that point. But they were like, "This is maybe just a little bit too adult, like wait a little while." So what I did was, as like the mad movie scientist that I guess I was as a child, I was like, well, if I watch Reservoir Dogs on cable while no one's looking, and I watch Look Who's Talking Now, it's kind of like watching Pulp Fiction, isn't it? So I remember doing that rotation of those two movies several times over the span of like October 94 to like December 94. And then in 95, when Pulp Fiction was like booming and it was really popular, and I had seen it by that point, I saw it like right before the Oscars in 1995. Welcome Back, Kotter was on Nick at Night all the time. And it was the same thing as like the first time I saw him as James in Look Who's Talking, where I was just like, Barbarino is the funniest guy on television. And it was one of those great performances where it wasn't even what he was saying, it wasn't the dialogue, it was just the behavior. He was just so winning and so charming, and it was kind of a line of sight into how this actor became such a beloved performer, beloved artist in the 70s, before I was even around to see Saturday Night Fever or Grease and things like that. So he always meant a lot to me. He's my mom's favorite actor. She passed down, especially Saturday Night Fever, kind of everything with that, with the Bee Gees music and with the dancing and with Travolta and his performance on the movie itself. It was something that we would see in theaters all the time, like whenever it was reissued as a Fathom event or just a rep screening. And I just gravitated to him being my favorite actor in the past few years. And I made a project for myself a couple years ago where I was like, I got to fill in the gaps of the Travolta movies that I haven't seen. And I think of his features, not counting like documentaries that he's appeared in. He's been in somewhere, the last time I checked, I think it was somewhere in the 60s, somewhere in like 65, 66 movies.
Right.
So I had about 20 or so to watch for the first time. So I did that a couple years ago. I just watched one a month, and it took me a couple of years to do that. And it was a really fun project, but I can finally say of my favorite actor, I've seen all of his feature films. So ranking on 11 through 20 was fun and also very challenging.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's good. I appreciate that. Just to bring the listeners up to speed, my relationship to John Travolta, the actor, is also my favorite actor. And I'm in this unique situation where, look, Grease comes out in 1978. I'm born in 1978.
Mm-hmm.
But I have two sisters that are 4 and 6 years older than me, respectively. So I grew up in a household where Grease was on heavy rotation. And we're talking about not just the movie, but the double vinyl, soundtrack that you would open up and had all the pictures from the movies. And I remember I was 11 years old. I saw Look Who's Talking in the theater as an 11-year-old. Absolutely just a charming film. And one I know we're going to talk about a little later on. I was 16 years old when Pulp Fiction came out.
Mm-hmm.
So I, like a lot of people from my generation, we knew Travolta. We knew him. Yeah. We knew him very well. We knew who he was. But we got to experience that run that I don't know another actor has ever gone on. That was Pulp Fiction, and then the next 10 plus years of sometimes 2 or 3 movies a year, and such a diverse catalog of films. And again, listeners know he's been on the podcast twice. I consider myself quite lucky that 6 years ago he reached out to me and we struck up a conversation. I asked him to be on the show, and he so kindly accepted, and we still chat from time to time to this day. So, if I'm a little biased, it's because I do in fact know him, but that doesn't change the fact that he is still my favorite actor. I just consider myself extremely lucky to be able to, if I have a question about one of his movies, I can just pick up the phone and send a text message, and he generally writes me back relatively quickly. So it's a pretty awesome experience. But listening to you over the years on F This Movie podcast, which again, I want to emphasize, my all-time favorite podcast, I've heard you talk of Travolta and Travolta films, and you can feel the love. You can hear the love that you have for him as an actor. It's genuine, and that's why it was so important to ask you to let's do this conversation, because I know it's not just an arbitrary list of films that you're just pulling out and saying, all right, well, this one. I know you genuinely have thought this through, and I'm excited to go over it. So
yeah, I'm excited to do that too. A lot of them it's like straight from the heart picks. So like, to our listeners, I think some people might be like, wow, I'm surprised that this ranked so high or whatnot. But yeah, these are just the ones that like grab me the most that are not in my top 10.
All right. Well, Adam, let's just give the listeners just a little taste of what that top 10 is. And we'll just go through that one real quick. And if there's one that jumps out at me, I want to offer a bit of commentary. Perhaps we'll do it, but we'll jump into the numbers 11 through 20. after that.
Okay. All right. So I'll start with number 1 and then go down to 10.
Okay.
So number 1 is Saturday Night Fever, which is my favorite movie of all time.
Okay.
Number 2 is Pulp Fiction, which is my third favorite movie of all time. So it makes sense that he's my favorite actor of all time, because he's in 2 of my 3 favorite movies. If he was just in Jaws, it would have been perfect. My number 3 is Carrie. My number 4 is Blowout. My number 5 is Grease. Number 6 is Face Off. Number 7 is Urban Cowboy. Number 8 is Get Shorty. Number 9 is A Civil Action. And number 10 is Mobland.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. 2 I want to mention real quick. Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question because it immediately popped in my mind. Okay. John in Jaws, is he Hooper or is he Brody? Who does he play? Which character do you think he pulls off better?
I think, judging by the age, it would have to be Hooper.
Okay.
If it was shot in 75, or shot in 74 and released in 75. Now I think he would make a really good Brody, though. So, but I could also see him playing a Quint. Like, if he was doing like a love song from Bobby Long type of character as Quint, like, I could see him doing that.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Of that list, there's so many definitive, everything from Blowout to Urban Cowboys. I mean, Saturday Night Fever is a top 10 film for me. Absolutely. I'm not just talking about a top 10 Travolta, like a top 10 film. And the more I have, I don't want to use the term analyze, but as I've gotten older, the more I've understood that movie, the better it becomes on subsequent viewings. It is very much known in casual ways about, the dancing, the Bee Gees and the dance scenes and all that stuff. But that is just, that's just on the surface. There's so much more to that film, and he's incredible, absolutely incredible in the film.
Yeah. It's one of those just spark plug performances. Like, he's so alive. And I think that people don't get enough credit for physicality of performance. Like, sometimes when talking about acting, at least among movie fans, it turns into too much about like recitation of dialogue and only that. But I mean, when you take into account how just Tony Manero's physicality when he's dancing, the physicality when he's walking, his bravado, his vulnerability that he has when he's just kind of talking to Karen Gorney. I think I got the name right. I'm sorry. It's just everything. It's everything. Like, and it's funny too. And he's sometimes so embarrassing to watch, not the performer, but Tony Manero, because he's so awkwardly treading into adulthood. And it's just like he's shedding his adolescence and these bad influences that he's grown up with, that he's become dependent on. And it just is like the best movie ever made about a boy trying to become a man. And I love it. It's an amazing, amazing piece of work.
So Tony Manero is one of my all-time favorite characters. And in real time, in the DanaBuckler Show studio, I'm sending you a picture in real time of a poster of a one sheet that is in the DanaBuckler Show studios. And you should get it here in just a moment.
A Staying Alive poster.
It's autographed Staying Alive. Yes, it's personally autographed Staying Alive poster. So
I could take a picture of my 11 by 17 autographed Saturday Night Fever poster.
That's what I'm talking about.
I got to meet Mr. Travolta at Wizard World convention when he was promoting The Fanatic in Chicago a few years ago, and he was so nice. It was great.
I remember you talking about that on the show. That was awesome. So the other one, which I love that it's number 10 on your list. Yeah. Because it's one of these movies that you, me, Patrick, we all kind of discovered this film, just talking about Mobland, of course, here for a moment. Written and directed by Nicholas Maggio, who, again, full disclosure, has been a guest on this podcast. That's a fantastic movie.
It really is. Yeah. I mean, like any opportunity I get to sort of talk about it and maybe turn somebody new onto that movie, I'll take. It's especially for a young in his career writer director to be able to blend like No Country for Old Men elements and Collateral elements and kind of put it together with like a new spin. It's great, and I love the type of performance that or the type of character that Travolta has in that movie. Kind of as like this moral center of like a world where morality is loose at best, but the characters are so interesting. Like the turns that like Stephen Dorff's character takes by the end. It's such a damn good movie. I really really like it. Yeah.
It's a movie that I own, and it's interesting because sometimes I'll just go through my movies that I own on iTunes, and I'll just kind of click through, and then I just, oh yes, Mobland, boom, right on. And it's a movie that, again, listen to the episode where Nicholas comes on and talks about the production. Where they had like 11 or 12 days to shoot this film.
It's insane. It's amazing.
They had what we call very, very limited resources, and the film looks like it was made for $40 million. Like it just, it's a testament to Nicholas as a filmmaker, and it's one of those situations where it's you say to yourself, watch out for what this guy does next. We really going to pay attention to what he does next.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so fantastic top 10 list.
Oh, thank you.
So let's get into the meat of this episode, if you will. We're going to be talking about your picks for 11 through 20.
Okay.
So do you want to go 20 up to 11, or do you want to go 11 down to 20?
I want to go 20 up to 11.
Okay.
And that's because I have a tie at 20.
Okay. All right.
So, and there's a specific reason why I have it as a tie. So my tie is, no pun intended, Ty West in the Valley of Violence.
Okay.
And it's tied with Terrence Malick's A Thin Red Line.
Okay.
And A Thin Red Line would be higher on the list if it were more of a John Travolta vehicle. But because he's got a very important scene at the beginning of the movie because it informs Nick Nolte's entire character arc and why informs what he's doing and why he's doing it. But I don't think of it as like a Travolta picture, so to speak.
Right.
Even though I loved the movie. So I'm putting it at 20 with In a Valley of Violence. And In a Valley of Violence is a really interesting Western. I read that Ty West described it as like a Western where or like a revenge story where like everybody's kind of an idiot or something like that. And I think that I don't read them all as idiots. I read them kind of more as, let's look at like Unforgiven. Okay, you've got Clint Eastwood as sort of the anti-hero protagonist. He's not even a hero really, but he's the protagonist. Gene Hackman, Morgan Freeman, Richard Harris as your top four. And they all have like this gravitas. And by design, in A Valley of Violence, nobody has gravitas. Everybody is kind of fledgling. And even Ethan Hawke is sort of like a shaky hero in this movie. And the thing I love about Travolta so much in this movie is he's almost like the reluctant villain of the movie, where like he sort of just wants to be the peacekeeper. He sympathizes in certain ways with Ethan Hawke's predicament and his history as a deserter, a soldier, but he just doesn't have the gravitas to keep the peace. Like his son won't listen to him, and like just shit hits the fan and it goes crazy. So I really like the movie. I think that if I could offer one critique of the movie that would maybe make it a little bit better for me is I think it's like around an hour and 45 minutes. I wish it had like maybe one or two more bits of business going on, because it's a fairly straightforward revenge story. And there's not a lot of like subplots or B plots or things like that, or like other types of dramatic tension between the characters. But great movie dog, really, really cool movie. And a Travolta performance I haven't really seen before. And I'm going to mention a few other movies of his in this countdown where he played a villain. And this is I guess the time where I'll make a larger point is just being able to watch 10 movies of your favorite actor kind of all in quick succession. It really shows you, wow, even though he's playing a villain in this piece, he can play it in multiple different ways. And it's really cool to see that happen.
It's one of those situations where, and I've seen In a Valley of Violence, and I've really enjoyed the film.
Yeah.
But it's one of those situations where we talk about John as playing a villain. There's actors out there that they have a personality and they play that personality, whether they're the protagonist or the antagonist. I'm just thinking out loud. Like Richard Gere is Richard Gere in every movie he's ever done. Vince Vaughn is Vince Vaughn in every movie he's ever done, for the most part. So what I'm saying is there's such a diversity to the way Travolta takes on different roles, and it's going to be in this list that you've come up with, but doing the villains completely different every time is remarkable. It's absolutely remarkable.
Yeah, it's cool because he's the type of actor you can't just put him in one column where it's like, oh, he's a great movie star or he's a great actor. He's both a great actor and a great movie star, because the range within just the type of character he's playing, like I have 4 different villains to talk about, and they're all different and they're all, quirky in their own certain ways. But as a movie star, like through every one of those and every movie that I talk about in this 10, he's indelibly John Travolta. He's got that special something that only John Travolta has, that movie star charisma, so to speak. And just the way he's able to blend the two of them together is so special.
You can't fake that charisma. You can't teach it.
You just have it or you don't.
You have it or you don't. And he absolutely has it. Speaking of Thin Red Line, this is a film that it was Terrence Malick's return after 17 years. He does Days of Heaven and then just stops making movies.
Yeah.
And so it was a big deal. And famously, Terrence Malick wanted John in Days of Heaven. And
I remember hearing that.
And he wouldn't, they wouldn't release him from Cotter to do this movie. They wouldn't release him. They wouldn't allow him the time to do it. Yeah. And the word is that Malick was so dismayed over that, over just the control that certain individuals in the Hollywood system had, that he just gave up filmmaking for 17 years. But believe me, when A Thin Red Line was getting ready to be made, you better believe John was in the film, and he's great in it.
Yeah, he really, really is. And speaking of Thin Red Line, that came out in 1998, and it's slept on how great John Travolta's 1998 was.
Yeah,
because you had A Civil Action, Thin Red Line, and Primary Colors, and how he did not get an Oscar nomination for one of those performances for Best Actor is beyond me. I don't understand it.
And that goes to what I was saying about, that run where sometimes you're getting 2-3 movies a year, and Civil Action. Those 3 movies couldn't be any more different from each other, and they're all just incredible. So that's great. All right, so that was a tie for 20. Okay, mm-hmm. So next on your list.
Okay, next on my list is a movie that I don't think gets enough love. It is Domestic Disturbance, directed by Harold Becker. I'm a big fan of Becker. I really like Sea of Love, and Malice especially is really, really fun. Domestic Disturbance is like the male version of the early 90s domestic thriller. It's like should be on a double feature DVD with The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. And I don't know if like that fad had just been kind of, throughout the 90s, and then by 2001 it just wasn't as big anymore or what, but I just love I love the efficiency of the movie. Like it just is, you get in and get out. It's like really entertaining. I think the performances are all very good. It's another example of Travolta adding a lot of texture to a character that might not necessarily have that if it were played by another actor. I think he's so good at playing fathers, and this is like another example of him with like a really strong father-son relationship. He has an ability that I don't always see with actors where he seems like he's always connecting to the other person in the scene, whether it be somebody who's kind of a younger actor or like an elder statesman actor. Like there's a sense of play there, and a sense of connection, like almost like, yeah, it's very naturalistic. You feel like you're watching two people having real conversations. And I think he's really good with Matthew O'Leary in this movie. And then I think Vince Vaughn, um, I'm a I kind of was, I grew up on Swingers and his comedic work. But by 2001, I had seen him do some dramatic stuff like the Psycho remake or the Return to Paradise is also terrific. It's one of his best performances. But he is so creepy as this, Rebecca De Mornay type of like guy who's trying to take over the family character. And I think it's a really, really strong movie. The only thing that I wish with Domestic Disturbance is I feel like there was some tinkering going on because there's some noticeable ADR where like some dialogue was kind of cleaned up to not have as many like F words and things like that. And it also feels like a movie that maybe is 2 hours and is also kind of shrunk to an hour and a half, which is fine. Like I like that it's kind of, you get in and get out, but at the same time, I would love to see a longer cut of Domestic Disturbance if it existed.
I always enjoy the kind of movies like The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, all this, where you as the audience, you as the viewer, they're a bad person, and it just frustrates you that our heroes, our protagonists, they don't see it. And there's always the one person who knows, and everyone else just can't see it. And I love that because it elicits these emotions from you. I watched Domestic Disturbance. I didn't rewatch it for this conversation because we watched it about 6 months ago, and it's such an interesting film because you nailed it perfectly because it is a callback or a throwback to that early 90s type of film that, your Unlawful Entries, your, The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, like those type of films. And they had kind of gone away a little bit by the time we get to like 2001. And so it was a refreshing film to watch. It was refreshing, even though by our standards, the movie's 24 years old, but it was refreshing to watch this type of movie. Like, oh, you know what? I miss these kind of films.
Yeah, and now, divorced of, almost 25 years from the opening of that movie, like it feels part and parcel to like that early 90s wave. It feels like one of those, like it came out in 92. It's really cool.
Absolutely. All right, perfect. Yeah. All right, so just to keep updated on the list here. So we're on to number
18.
18. Okay.
All right, so this gets a little tricky because I've changed the rankings so many times.
Okay.
So I'm gonna try to wing it and I'll say 18. Let's go with the Taking of Pelham 123.
Okay. All right. A movie that I saw in theaters and a movie that I eagerly anticipated rewatching for this conversation. I'm a big Tony Scott guy. I mean,
how could you not be?
Yeah.
He's
amazing. Everything Top Gun Beyond is just, stylistic. True Romance, one of my all-time favorite movies. So we've got Tony Scott, and he has got two heavy hitters in this film: Travolta and Washington, and Gandolfini. There's all kinds of people in this film. I'll turn it over to you first, though, because I do have a lot of thoughts on the movie.
I guess my first thought about it is like when talking about Travolta villains, like holy shit, is he a mean bastard in this movie? Like if you compare him to the villain of sorts in A Valley of Violence, it's just like night and day. And I don't know, like the thing that I find interesting about this, one, I was hooked immediately just by the cast. I'm a big Denzel Washington fan. He's one of my favorite actors too. He's so good at playing like just normal guys and like adding a lot of texture to them too. And kind of seeing him like react off of this volcanic Travolta performance is part of the pleasure of it. And, there's James Gandolfini and John Turturro and just like Michael Rispoli, like everywhere you look is like a great, whether it's character actor or New York actor, like it's got that like great New York feel to it. It's also just, I think, like a really solid remake of it's a tough task to take on the taking of Pelham 123, like the Walter Matthau, Robert Shaw, Martin Balsam version. I saw that one actually after I saw the Tony Scott version. So I kind of came to this as like in a roundabout, or I came to that in sort of a roundabout way. But I've seen the Tony Scott version maybe like 3 or 4 times, and every time it gets better.
Yeah.
It's so intense. It reminds me of To Live and Die in LA, where like I almost feel like I'm having a panic attack while I'm watching it down to the last credit, because they keep splicing in like the sound of a speeding train and like the and like the beep beep, and I'm just like, oh my God, it's the end credits. Let me off the hook, please. Like it's so kind of heart pounding.
It's one of my, like well, I'm not going to rank Tony Scott films, but he's such a stylistic director. But it's perfectly balanced for a Tony Scott film. It goes batshit insane in some parts, but then brings everything back down. I mean, but you're absolutely right. Like there are parts of the movie when they're trying to get the money, and they've got the cops on the motorcycles, and you're like, all right, we'll get it there, and shit goes sideways. It's unbelievable. Like it's edge of your seat. But speaking of Travolta in this film, when I had an opportunity to talk to him, he told me this is one of the, like, I asked him what's one of the villains you really enjoy playing. He mentioned this one. And if I remember correctly, I think the studio heads, the producers, whoever's, giving notes, if you will. Yeah. I mean, I can't believe somebody would give notes to Tony Scott, but that's how the studio system works. Wanted John to tone it down a little bit. And Tony Scott was like, no, fuck that. No, he's going to do what he's going to do. And I think that's awesome. It's a testament to Scott standing up for his actors.
That would have been, in my opinion, just all wrong too, especially because like it doesn't fit with the Tony Scott thing to like undercrank anything. Yeah. So like that doesn't make much sense to me. But also when Travolta shoots the first hostage, the guy who works on the train, the motorman or whatever, like that is such an important moment. It's a shocking moment. It's such an important moment. It shows you that you're dealing with a guy who's beyond the pale. And that person who has like a death wish, because at the end of the movie, like, I don't think he really even cares anymore that he's not going to get away with this. It's just he's not going back to prison. It's just one or the other. He either makes off with, tens of millions of dollars or whatever amount it was, or he's going to be dead. I mean, like, that person doesn't tone it down.
No.
Like, there's no reason for that person to tone it down.
A different movie, where we've got the hostage situations where you hear the, I don't want to say the trope, but the cliche, if we don't get the money in 1 hour, we're going to start offing the hostages, but never really happens in the movie. So you're absolutely right. When he does shoot the guy, it is that holy shit moment. Okay, all bets are off. Nobody's safe in this film. And it's brilliant. Good observation.
Yeah.
All right. Love that movie. I really had a really good time rewatching that film. I mean, really good time.
I do think it gets better with each revisit. It's really good. Okay. Number 17. I'm gonna go with Phenomenon.
Phenomenon. All right. This is 96.
96. Same weekend as Independence Day.
Yes. Okay.
That was a good weekend at the movies. That was a good summer at the movies.
18 years old. I lived within walking distance of a Regal Cinema multiplex in Knoxville, Tennessee. And I have cited, although many will make the argument that 99 is one of the best years of cinema, I will make the argument that 96 was my favorite year of cinema as far as my experience going to the movies. Because when I tell you, Adam, I went every weekend. I went every weekend and sometimes twice. So I did see Phenomenon in the theater. And I'll turn it over to you first, but I'll give you some thoughts.
Phenomenon is... all right, so every once in a while when I watch Phenomenon, I make the mistake of trying to like really crack the theme of the movie. And I think I'm missing the point because I keep thinking, I'm just like, is this movie sort of like a cry for not fearing intelligence or curiosity, or like what is the movie trying to say necessarily? And I think I'm missing the point. I think the point basically is just to really live in this sweet story with these sweet people who are all good people. They make mistakes, but like they're all good people. It sort of is like the boy in the plastic bubble in a certain
Yeah.
way, like where it's just very heartfelt. And I think that's the point of the movie, is just kind of like, and I don't mean this as a pejorative, it's just like sentiment, and that's not a bad thing. Like it's just about like eliciting sentiment and like having a heartfelt experience. Um, and again, another great movie, or another great cast in this movie.
Yeah.
I love Travolta when he's in scenes with Robert Duvall, whether it's in a civil action, especially, or in Phenomenon. I think they have such great rapport, and they're two actors who just love. They have that sense of play, like they just love bouncing off of each other, and there's a lot of spontaneity and everything to what they're doing. Forrest Whitaker, Keira Sedgwick, they're all great. And also one thing that I love about the movie, so the final moment of the movie where they do the panning shot of the bar for his posthumous birthday, and then they stop on the 4x6 photo of him, and it kind of gives you a beat where like you really take in kind of two things. One is just like how much you like John Travolta as an actor, like what a sweet guy he seems to be, especially in Phenomenon, and but also like George Malley is just like the impact of a person's life, and it's not his intelligence that developed that they're remembering. It's all of the things that made him uniquely him as a human being. And one part that wrecks me is when Robert Duvall and the little boy who's also in Look Who's Talking Now, I think it's David Gallagher. If I'm getting the name wrong, I'm sorry. But he was on Seventh Heaven for a number of years. But when they're playing chess, and that struck me as so true to life, because one way that we keep people alive is by honoring the traditions that we shared with them and passing it along to other people. Yeah. And I lost somebody very, very near and dear to me last year, and like that's been my life since then. It's just like, what are the movies I watched with her? What are the music that we shared together? Like I'm making playlists all the time. It's just like, it's part of my grief process. It's part of like the way that I remember that person. And I love that Phenomenon ends on that note. It's one of those things where the right final shot or the right ending to a movie can make a movie just elevated altogether. It's like a rising tide raises all ships. And I think Phenomenon has that, but it's also just kind of a fun movie too. Like it's just real quaint, and they don't make movies like, I mean, it's cliche to say it, but they don't really make movies like Phenomenon anymore.
No, and it's one of those films where I want to tell you that I'm rewatching it, because I saw it in the theater, and I probably saw it maybe 5 or 6 years after that, but rewatched the movie for this conversation. I don't know if it's because I'm 47 years old now. I don't know if it's because I've just lived life much more than, 18-year-old version of me when I saw this film. But I fell in love with it way more than I thought I would. And for a lot of the reasons you mentioned. And I remember there's this sense of awe and unknown about his abilities that he has. And the movie is a little bit ambiguous about how he has this ability. Like you don't know, you see, he saw a light, and he's starting to become well known, and people are seeking him out. And there's a scene where these parents are holding their child and like, please lay hands on my child and everything. And you're waiting for the answer of where these abilities came from. And I won't spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen the film, but the gut punch of finding out how he has the abilities, I had to pause the movie for a moment. I was just like, oh, God, because maybe I hadn't remembered exactly, it hadn't, but it really hit me this time. And a charming movie. It's fun in a lot of parts. When he's being interviewed by Brent Spiner, who's also in Independence Day, same year as Dr. Oaken. But when he's being interviewed, that's just, I love that type of movie where you've got the expert, he's interviewing, and then the scientists just can't believe it, and the panning on their eyes and the look on their face of, well, I've never seen any of this, and I'm a man of science, and this can't be possible. I love all that. Funny, charming, heartwarming, very sad, and uplifting at the same time. It's a movie that kind of stands in its own category. Excellent addition to this list, by the way.
Thank you. All right. Okay, so, all right, next on the list, number 16, Trading Paint.
Okay, Trading Paint. I've seen this.
Okay. All right, the biggest compliment I could give Trading Paint is it makes me care about a world I did not even really know about before the movie. I kind of knew. I mean, like, I know about car racing. I didn't know about, like, this specific kind of car racing. But I didn't really, like, have an affinity to it. But I'm a big Travolta fan, obviously. I'm a big Michael Madsen fan. I like Kevin Dunn. So I'm like, sure, like, sign me up. And it's just, like, kind of disarmingly sweet. And I really like that. It's a movie that has conflict for about 60 of its 90 minutes. And then it just sort of ends with 30 minutes of like, yay, everything's great. And like, I don't mean that as a negative. I think it's refreshing to see a movie that kind of wraps up like its central conflict and then just sort of like has like a victory lap for like the last act. I think it's really sweet and fun. And like, obviously, Michael Madsen's still kind of a heel, but he helps them secure the victory by giving them the money to rebuild the car. So even he's kind of like a teddy bear by the end of the movie. And I don't know. I just really, I've followed John Travolta's movies for the, his entire career, especially going back and watching like his recent stuff. And like in the 2010s, I think this was like a 2019 release. In the 2010s, I would put this one up there with like The Forger and like some of the ones that I like really prefer the most. Again, he's playing, a father. He's great with those father-son relationships. And then also, it's money in the bank whenever he's playing a Southerner. Yes. I've noticed that. Whenever he's playing a Southerner, it's like slam dunk, 4 stars, 10 out of 10 for me.
He can pull it off. He gets it. I love it. I want to say something, okay?
Yeah.
I want to say something about Trading Paint and why I love this film. All right? And it goes beyond John's performance, okay? Because he's terrific in the film. I used to live in a little town called Tazewell, Tennessee, and this is 45 miles north of Knoxville, and this is where I went to high school, and this is a town of about 25, maybe 3,000 people. And Adam, they had this exact style of racing, and it was religion in this small town. You could drive 30 miles, 40 miles to Knoxville, and no one there even heard of this racetrack. Nobody even heard of these drivers. But when you are in Tazewell, okay, you went to the races every Saturday night. And these drivers were as popular as professional wrestlers to this hometown crowd. Yeah. And this movie captures that. Like you may say to yourself, if you've never watched like these type of late model, dirt track racing type of things, you may say, well, this is ridiculous. This world doesn't exist. Believe me when I tell you, it very much exists, and this film captures it really, really well. I was there. I went there every weekend.
I love when movies introduce you to a world that you're just completely oblivious to. That's one of the benefits of watching movies, is it rounds out the experience of stuff that you don't know about.
It gets it right because it's a movie where they don't have money. You're not in it to become you're not one of these racers to become rich and successful and famous. Maybe if you're a good enough racer, you go up to another level. And you get sponsored. You might go beyond this, but the money you win literally just goes back to your car, goes back into building the vehicle, and I loved it. I really did. And you know what? It's got a good supporting cast. Michael Madsen, love him in everything. Yeah.
He's great in this. And then I forgot. I didn't write down the name of the song or the band, but whatever song they're playing right at the end of the movie and going into the end credits. I'm not a country music guy. That song kicks ass.
Yeah.
That song is amazing. And I also, this will sound like I'm making a joke, but I'm not. It's something I genuinely enjoy. I like that the commentators for the races, they have to be the same guys who did the pod racing in episode 1. They sound exactly like that. Like I just expected them to be like, oh, coming across the last turn is Sebulba.
Listen, I don't even know if we had commentators at the racetrack. That might have been too much of a luxury. But I love it. That's great. Trading Paint. I'm so glad you put this on the list. I really am. That was great. That was great. All right. What do you got next?
All right. Number 15, I'm going to go with Chains of Gold.
Chains of Gold. All right. Here we go. Full transparency.
Yeah.
This was a blank spot for me in John's filmography. And I'm going to put that on accessibility, of finding the movie. It was a movie. It was I hate to use the word made for TV because that's not how this works. All right. It was a movie that debuted on Showtime. Showtime acquired the rights to show the movie. It's not a made for TV movie. But I was doing a little research. It's like Chains of Gold, made for TV movie. No, it's not. No, it's not. That's not how it works. They picked up the distribution rights for the film. So this was a first time watch for me. So I'll let you go first. But
this was one that I just. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, and I went in cold. What I mean by cold is I didn't read the synopsis. I didn't watch the trailer on YouTube. I didn't even know what the title meant. All I knew was John was in it. It was from 1991, and I was able to get a copy of the movie. So I watched it cold. No idea what was going on.
I don't know what the rights of this movie is, but like they need to have like an official release of this on Blu-ray at some point. Because like I own a bootleg copy, and I would totally spend $30 on a Blu-ray of it. I think this. All right, so I saw in my half-assed internet research on IMDb, I saw that the movie was shot in the late 80s.
Okay.
So being that it got there first, this movie predicted not only Nino Brown from New Jack City.
Yes.
But this movie also predicted the Foot Clan from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
All right, let me stop you right there because that is exactly what was going through my head. When I was watching,
the youth incentive program is an R-rated Ninja Turtles.
I was expecting to hear MC Hammer's "This Is How We Do It" from the Ninja Turtles soundtrack. Like I was right there with you. All right, perfect. I was right there with you.
Yeah, I'm gonna phrase this. All right, there's the phrase "guilty pleasure," which usually means something that you're embarrassed to like. I don't feel that way about Chains of Gold. I just enjoy Chains of Gold. I feel guilty that I'm getting so much pleasure out of a movie where they're threatening to throw children down an elevator shaft full of crocodiles. I feel like maybe I should be taking this more seriously, but like I think this movie is like a lost canon films masterpiece. It's like so great as an exploitation movie, and I think Travolta is so good in it. He's great as the dramatic, social worker, like he's doing those scenes, but also like when he springs into action, it's like a real kind of kick-ass, like, you want to cheer because all these other guys, whether it's like Hector Elizondo who's selling him out, or Benjamin Bratt who's like the ultimate evil threat, like you just want John Travolta to like spring Joey Lawrence from this existence, and it's like Taken. It's like on a primal level. Like you just want the good guys to win. And I just had a great time both times I watched this movie. It feels like this kind of uncovered gem in his filmography to me.
Everybody needs to see this movie, and everybody needs to have the same reaction that I had the other day watching it for the first time. Okay? Because it starts off I don't want to use the term harmless enough, but it starts off with John's, he's a social worker, he's in Miami, he's helping the troubled kids. And, there's a scene where he tells, this one, mother and daughter, if you use this money for crack, we're going to take your baby away. And, you're going to be out of the program. And so, all right, he's dealing with some tough issues.
Mm-hmm.
And then the movie just gets absolutely insane in some parts. And I was just like, holy shit. Again, I'm saying this as a compliment. The movie goes for it in ways that I didn't think a movie would or could. I had a great time watching this film. It was insane in some parts.
It really
in a good way.
Like, it should just escalate so much in this movie, and that's really fun to see sometimes. And I like I said, it's a guilty pleasure of mine because I don't know if the intent was for it to be a more sober message, but judging from the work that I'm watching on screen, it's a fantastic thriller. It's like just this great action movie. And like he's like Indiana Jones by the end. He's like sliding down the sides of buildings and shit like that. And you're just like, hell yeah, go get that kid back.
This is going to be, we have to champion in this movie. We have to get more people to see this film, because I think the more people that see this, the more this can get that cult film status that it deserves, because this was a complete blind spot. And I was just like, when you had told me, Chains of Gold was going to be on your list, I was like, I don't think I've ever seen that movie. Yeah. And I couldn't believe it. And I just, anyway, I'm sorry. I had a blast watching the film because it just went in ways that I never anticipated. And I was like, oh my God, they're really going for that.
Yeah, I part of the discovery of that is part of the pleasure of the movie, which you don't always get. And when you do get that in a movie, it's so fun that you're just like, wow, they're really going there.
By the way, I got a little inside baseball, a little inside information on the film. All right. As I alluded to at the beginning of this episode, John has been on the show a couple of times, and we do chat from time to time, and I'm grateful anytime he takes a minute out of his insanely busy schedule to respond to me. Doing some research on this film, because I wanted to learn as much as I could about the film, he was credited as one of the writers. And, he doesn't write a lot. In fact, I can't speak to how accurate my research is, everybody. I'm not using AI for research, but I'm just trying to do good old-fashioned looking for it. It says this is one of the only projects he was ever credited as a writer on. And so I asked him today, I said, she mentions that Chains of Gold you were a writer on, and is there anything else you can tell me? And he responded back. He said, he goes, that was a movie that when I first got the script, he thought it was a really good premise, but he felt like it needed to be rewritten. And he wrote it with two of his producing partners, and they fixed some areas that they felt could be better. And they worked really hard. According to John, they worked really hard on getting that film exactly the way they wanted it. So this is one of those interesting movies where credit to the writer, because John's one of them.
Yeah.
So I just, it's got to be a rights thing, because it's got to be a rights thing. This movie would play well, if it was readily available. It was on at HBO under the action section of what would be a good streaming service for this to be on. I'm just thinking out loud.
I mean, Shudder is kind of like more of a horror service, but like I feel like they also kind of get some exploitation stuff in there too. Tubi. This has Tubi written all over it.
This would play really, really well on Tubi.
Yeah.
So, hey, you never know. Maybe I'll ask John what's the situation on what do we have to do to get this movie out there?
I want a 35 millimeter print of it. I don't even have a projector, but I'll just drag it from theater to theater and I'll be like, play this for me.
It would, listen, we might be on to something, okay? I'll tell you this. You make that happen, I'll be the first one to fly up to Chicago.
All right. If I can find a print of it, I'll rent out the music box and we'll watch it.
There we go. Listen, we do smash cut. Can we get Patrick involved?
Yeah, of course.
So, has he ever seen this movie? Have you ever discussed this film with him?
Yeah. I was praising it to the heavens, and he watched it and he liked it a lot too.
Awesome. All right. Just curious. All right, everybody. Chains of Gold. I'm telling you, find it, watch it. It's something. It's awesome. All right, next up.
All right, number 14. We'll continue on our action roll here. I'm going to go with The Punisher.
Punisher. All right.
Which I think is crazy underrated.
Are you ready for a bold statement coming from me? That's actually, it's not going to surprise you when I tell you this.
Yeah.
My favorite Marvel movie.
I could see that. Yeah. It's up there with mine. I prefer the pre-MCU Marvel.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
I like the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans. I like the Punisher, stuff like that. So don't get me wrong. There's some good MCU movies, but they're not as good as the Punisher.
No.
So here's my hot take. So I remember the Punisher very well because it came out in April of 2004. It was a month before I graduated from college. So I was in a long distance relationship, and me and my girlfriend at the time were like, we weren't getting on very well. And it was like the writing was on the wall that we were going to break up soon. So I was spending a lot of time in movie theaters, trying to ease my pain. So I watched Kill Bill Volume 2, Man on Fire, and The Punisher in pretty close succession over the course of a couple of weeks. And it was like a great time because action movies are kind of my balm whenever I get dumped. So I was watching The Punisher, and I gotta say, The Punisher I prefer over Man on Fire, and I prefer it over Kill Bill Volume 2.
There you go.
So, yeah, here's the thing with The Punisher. I'm an action movie guy more than a comic book movie guy, and this movie works so well as just an action vehicle. So I appreciate it from that standpoint.
I am not a comic book guy, but listen, if others are, and there's a huge fan base for all things comics beyond just Marvel, DC, like and I am not knocking it. It's just, because there are things that I'm obsessed with that people might call me, kind of a dork for, but it's what I'm into. So but comic books never really been my thing. And so I had no real understanding of the Punisher. I don't think I had ever read a Punisher comic book leading up to that movie. I had seen the Dolph Lundgren, Louis Gossett Jr. 1989 film, which I remember not caring for, but now kind of love, in retrospect after some rewatching. But things that this movie had going in my favor, seeing it, obviously it's Travolta playing Howard Saint. Okay. The movie's filmed in Tampa, which is right down the road from where I live. So it was one of those, I recognized the locations right away. But you're coming off of a period where you've got X-Men movies, you've got Spider-Man movies, and they're PG-13, spectacle, blockbuster, manufactured blockbuster films. Not knocking them. People love them. Okay. Not for me. So to sit down and watch an R-rated, and in some cases very R-rated, action film, fucking loved it. Saw it 3 times that weekend. Loved it. This was a big deal when I got to interview John, because I got to say this to him. Tell me how you got into The Punisher, because I can't believe I'm sitting across the table from Howard Saint. I said that to him, and he loved. He got a copy of the script and he looked at it. And he even, from what I understand, his asking price, obviously, he's got a big asking price. He took less money just so they could get this movie made. It didn't have a huge budget, and that speaks to his character because he loved the material so much, and he's brilliant in the movie.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up the Tampa part of it, because one of the things that's really nice about the movie is it's got a specificity of locale feel to it. It's like when you're watching, this is maybe a weird analogy, but it's like if you're watching Good Will Hunting, and how it being in Boston really kind of makes it into that much more of a homespun type of thing.
Right.
I love the cast again with the Punisher. Especially, I'm a big Will Patton fan, and having Will Patton in so many scenes together with John Travolta is great. I'm also I think Thomas Jane is so underrated. I think he's so good in The Mist and The Punisher, and of course supporting parts. I was surprised to read he's been in a lot of Travolta movies.
Yeah,
he was in Face Off. He was in The Thin Red Line.
Yeah.
He was also in The Punisher. And I I think he's perfect as Frank Castle, and like I love him as an action hero. So having like the Punisher be just as much as like the Thomas Jane action programmer as it is a comic book movie is great for me. And like again, Travolta's playing a villain, but he's playing a different kind of villain. Like this is sort of like a guy who's pseudo respectable, like on at face value and everything like that. Like he's got the money, he's got like the prestige, he's show offy and everything like that. Very different from what he's doing in A Valley of Violence, and very, very different from what he's doing in Tiki and Pelham 123, where there's like no polish to him. Yeah, it's so fun, and I hope people who maybe missed it back in '04 go back to it and check it out.
Well, that brings me to a question, because I mentioned that I saw the movie 3 times the weekend that it came out in '04, and I think I probably watched it 2 or 3 times. Subsequent. I will ask you this, Adam. Have you seen the director's cut of The Punisher?
I haven't. No, I'm weird in the sense that if I see a theatrical cut of something and I like it, I kind of don't want to see the director's cut of it. Like I sometimes I'm curious, like floating around right now is like the Batman Forever, the Schumacher cut. But I know like if I got my hands on that, I would watch it once and I would just go back to watching the theatrical cut that I love. So
I'm gonna do something that I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna recommend you seek out the director's cut, because
okay. Is it pretty easily available on streaming or DVD?
I didn't have a hard time finding it.
Okay.
I will say this because I don't want to spoil it. There's a whole segment that is cut out of from the time that Howard Saint's son is killed to when Frank's family is massacred in Puerto Rico. There's a whole subplot cut out on how Howard Saint found out who Frank Castle was.
Okay.
And there's a whole sequence that takes place in the Dominican Republic. I mean, with characters that are not that are in the scene that aren't in the movie for the rest of the film. And it's maybe 10 or 12 minutes, but it really adds to, in my opinion, it enhances the film. Yeah, it makes the movie, ultimately, I think the director gets about 25 minutes longer. Okay. But I found it, that's the version I would recommend to somebody who's never seen the film. It's got more of John in the movie as well. So
that's good, because like I don't really have any criticisms of the movie, but if I did, it would be that I wish there was more John Travolta in the movie.
Yeah.
I feel like he's in it quite a bit, but like I feel like for some reason there should be a little bit more.
I'm going to put a recommend on the movie, of course. But I'm going to recommend to somebody who maybe hasn't seen it, because the movie is more than 20 years old. God, it's crazy to think that. If you would have asked me when I saw The Punisher in the theater, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, But I would tell people to kind of maybe seek out the director's cut.
All right.
I love that movie. I'm glad you put that on the list. Okay.
Yeah.
What do we got next?
All right. Number 13, I'm going to go with Broken Arrow. Okay. John Woo, Broken Arrow. Okay. I've seen this movie so many times. I love Broken Arrow. I think that the key to this movie's success for me is they get the pairing right. Because when you have an action hero and a villain, the chemistry between the two of them, or the dynamic between the two of them, has to be interesting. And I think that they're both sort of playing against type in a way, but also doing it very well. Like I think Travolta, we at that point, I could be wrong, but at that point, I don't think he played too many like villains in action movies, if at all.
I don't think at all. And do we even classify Vincent from Pulp Fiction as a villain? Because I don't consider that a villain role. I mean, he's not a good guy, but
he's got a nefarious position.
Yeah, but he's still a charming guy. So, but
everybody's kind of a villain in that movie, and that's one of the joys of that movie is,
But so I do look at Broken Arrow as that first villain, a la action movie villain. So
and here's my take on his villain performance in Broken Arrow. That's different, of course, than taking Pelham 123, The Punisher, and In a Valley of Violence. So for Broken Arrow, he's like that guy you knew in school who you were friends with, but then started going the wrong way, and you're sad that you have to stop being friends with him. So he's like a nightmare person. Like he wants to like set off nukes and kill like tens of thousands of people. But there's also that twinge of sadness where you're just like, I like this guy. I'm sad that he's this way, and I can't maintain this friendship. So that's different for Travolta. And then also Christian Slater, an actor I really, really like, is playing a Boy Scout. And at that point, he wasn't really known for that. He was kind of playing, whether he's Clarence in True Romance or his character in Heathers. It was like a character with like more of an edge to him, or like you didn't really know like kind of where he was coming from, or he was like downright an evil guy.
Yeah.
And like having him so well play that straight man to John Travolta's larger than life villain is a really cool dynamic. And I think John Woo is smart enough to really frame it in a cool way. I don't know if it was just the screenplay or if it was Woo's direction or a combination of both, or input from the performers, but having it bookended by boxing matches, so to speak, or fist fights is so smart for a couple of reasons. So like, one, it's just because it's like, it sets this movie up as just like a mano the whole time. And then second is it gives believability to why these guys who fly stealth bombers would be able to brawl so well. It's because for fun, to blow off steam, they box.
Yeah.
So and it's one of the funniest moments, like towards the end of the movie, where like Christian Slater just starts kicking him, and he's like, "Oh, by the way, I know like martial arts a little bit." So, but no, I mean, and nobody stages action better than John Woo, and I love that the sequences are so clean. Like, there's not a lot of choppy editing. All the money shots that you're supposed to like really kind of go for, like you get to see in full view and they're not obscured by anything. And I heard a quote from John Singleton, the late great John Singleton. He said that I think he was describing the movie Four Brothers, and he said that that movie is a Saturday night special. And what he meant by that is it's a movie that you go see on a Saturday night, like on a date night or with a bunch of buddies, and it absolutely delivers on everything and more that you expect of it.
Yeah.
And that's how I categorize Broken Arrow.
Yeah.
Is it's like an ultimate Saturday night special, and it's so fun, and I could watch it every month if I wanted to. So.
I feel like it's often overshadowed by Face Off, which comes out a couple of years later. Same director, Travolta playing a villain again.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing Broken Arrow in the theater, and I'd seen Hard Target, which I'll argue is one of my favorite Van Damme movies, but it's because of the John Woo aspect of the film.
It's great too.
Yeah. But that just speaks to the John Woo's. So I went into Broken Arrow having seen Hard Target, and kind of that was the pedigree for me. And I remember, I wouldn't say the word thrown off, but sort of adjusting to John playing the villain in this capacity, because it was foreign to me. Again, I don't look at Vincent Vega as, the top henchman bad guy from he's just a guy. I don't know. We can dissect Vincent's character another time, but I don't see him in that same style as the characters he plays in Face Off or Broken Arrow. So, I mean, I really enjoyed the film. Something you mentioned that I remember also feeling a little strange about. I'm a Christian Slater guy as well. Cuffs. I mean, I just love that personality he has in Cuffs.
Cuffs should have won a Nobel Prize.
It really should have. I mean, more people should be talking about Cuffs. Yeah. It's a fantastic movie, everybody. It's one of the top 10 of the 90s. Everybody should check it out.
I love Cuffs.
I love Cuffs. I saw it in the theater. I loved it.
Yeah.
So yeah, but overall, and who else is in Broken Arrow? Howie Long.
Mathis.
Yeah. Howie Long.
Howie Long, Bob Gunton is very good. Frank Whaley, Delroy Lindo.
So many people. Yeah.
Yeah, a reuniting of Delroy Lindo from Get Shorty.
Yep.
I don't know if they share any scenes together though in Broken Arrow.
Right.
Yeah, I think what you said is very apt with like it kind of gets overshadowed by Face Off, and that's only because like if these movies were baseball teams, Broken Arrow made it to the playoffs and won the first round, and Face Off won the World Series.
Exactly. Yeah. Well said.
That's the only reason.
Well
So,
said.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Oh, great pick. All right. What do we have next? What number are we on next?
My number 12 is a movie that I touched on a little bit at the beginning of the show. It's Look Who's Talking, directed by Amy Heckerling. And this is the best version of a talking baby comedy they probably ever could have made.
Yeah.
And they did it. And John Travolta is so funny and so charming in this movie. And Kirstie Alley is equally good. And the thing that I really took away on this viewing is I wish I could see Bruce Willis recording this
Yeah. Yeah.
because he is so funny in this movie. And like just the bigness of the performance. It's like, obviously this was a time, he had done Die Hard, but like he was coming off of Moonlighting and Blind Date and everything like that, and a lot of comedy. And he's just so funny and effortlessly so. And yeah, I don't know. The thing that I like about the movie too is at its core, it's very sincere. It
Yeah.
could have very easily been ironic and arch, but it's not. It's sincere and it still is just as funny, if not funnier, because of that. So yeah, and just from a nostalgia perspective, because this is my first Travolta movie, I revisited it, a couple weeks ago, and I liked it just as much and was just as fascinated by Abe Vigoda as I was when I was 7 years old.
Sure. We're recording this prior to the release of Blank Check's episode on Look Who's Talking, which I'm eagerly anticipating. Blank Check podcast out there. If anybody is not familiar with this, one of the great podcasts out there. Everybody needs to check it out. They do profiles. They do entire series on directors. Right now they're doing Amy Heckerling, which again, fantastic. Love that show. Eagerly anticipating Look Who's Talking. Having said that, give a little plug to the show. Rewatching this film, I probably hadn't seen it in 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I remember bits and pieces of the movie.
Yeah.
So rewatching it this time, I want to say pleasantly surprised because I've always enjoyed the movie. But again, I'm going to refer to 47-year-old Dana now, who's lived life a lot more and is now older than the characters that are in the movie. It's bizarre to watch something that you saw when you were 11 and now you're older than the people that are being portrayed in the film. I'm just going in a weird, I'm middle-age crisis type of person right now. I'm just sort of,
I get it.
Yeah. But so it was kind of just odd to watch the film from that light. Now, having said that, Travolta doesn't make an appearance in the movie until 18 minutes and 30 seconds into the film. So we're almost 20 minutes before we're even introduced to him. And I will tell you, this is the best, one of my favorite performances. And it's interesting because he's not doing this villain. He's not doing this character you don't relate John Travolta for. Like, he's just being John, you know, and it's probably I think it's the most charming performance he's given in almost any film he's made. And I think I know when I did my top 10 list when I was on the Inglorious Rankers podcast, I don't even think this was even in the discussion. This movie now would be elevated into my top 10 John Travolta. That's how much I loved it. I'm going to give a mention of the sequence where Kirstie Alley and John Travolta, they're making out, and she sort of Heckerling does this great job of creating these dream-like scenarios or sequences. And it's just the scene where she's envisioning what it's going to be like, and she's got a baby, and she's smoking a cigarette, and the kids, and he's wearing the wife beater, and he's got the big gut, and he comes, and he's what's for dinner? I was in the dumpster. When you watch that scene, you can tell that they were having a very, very hard time keeping it together.
Yeah.
And I love being able to I love being able to pick up on those things because you can see it in his face that he can't. It must have been forever to get through that particular scene because I was in tears laughing. I'm rambling, Adam, but
no, there's so many just funny moments. Like anything Vigoda does is funny.
Yeah.
Like Olympia Dukakis is like firing on all cylinders in this movie. The scene that really stood out to me when I was watching it this time was how it almost made me like tear up was how wonderful it is in that scene where where John Travolta's saying goodbye to Mikey because he thinks that him and Kirstie Alley are on the outs, but the baby monitor's there and she's listening in, but he's like crying almost or like ready to well up like in front of a toddler, and he delivers it in such a straightforward, kind of sincere, no vanity type of thing, like just bearing his soul to like, and he said, like, I almost lost it when he's just like, you're so and so years old and you're probably my best friend in the world. Yeah. And it's just like, that's what, like this means so much to James. And I think only a performer or an artist of Travolta's caliber can like really deliver a moment like that and have it's like, it works even more because it's John Travolta.
Yeah.
Like I'm not knocking, we used Hooper as an example. Like if Richard Dreyfuss is delivering that scene, it has a whole different energy.
Yeah, it does. It does. But also, here's another thing that I tried to do watching Look Who's Talking was I tried to transport myself back to that year of 1989 and push out everything I know about the career that Travolta's going to have post Look Who's Talking. Yeah. Meaning that I'm just trying to live in that moment of 89. And it must have been delightful to see him on screen. For people that were, in the 70s, Travolta's everything, it must have just been delightful to see him back up on the screen, it just playing such a charming character.
Yeah, definitely.
That's a good pick. All right. So I think we're down. Right. I think we're on to number 11, right? Which would be the final one on this particular list. But I want to say, Adam, you nailed it. You nailed it on the list so far. I'm excited to talk about this last one.
Okay. All right. My number 11 is Primary Colors.
Yep.
Mike Nichols's sobering drama.
Yes.
In many ways, it's shocking how far afield we've come since 1998 in that landscape. I won't elaborate on that.
No.
But this is one of my favorite performances of John Travolta's because he disappears into Jack Stanton in a way that I forget it's John Travolta playing Jack Stanton, although it's at its core John Travolta. Like he's still the same guy that like is charismatic and winning and like you want him to like you, and that's almost perfect for like, again, this is another movie with great bookends. It starts with this is what his handshakes mean, and then at the end of the movie this is what handshake he gives to Adrian Lester, and it's like and then it pans to an American flag, and it's like the biggest gut punch of an ending that already had a gut punch of an ending because of the Kathy Bates character's trajectory. But I just find this movie to be so well written, so well performed by, John Travolta, by Emma Thompson, Billy Bob Thornton. Kathy Bates is one of my favorite actors too. Like I think she's tremendous in the movie as kind of the heart and soul of like what they're trying to get at. But it's fascinating, and it's another movie that benefits by me watching it now because I'm not 16 years old like I was when I saw it in 1998.
I am a sucker for political movies.
Yeah.
They're my go-to, meaning anything that, especially American politics, anything that shows you the behind the scenes of how the sausage is made, proverbially speaking. I am a sucker for those films. I love movies like The Contender. I love Primary Colors. I mean, the list goes on. I'm a big fan of Distinguished Gentleman. I think that's an underrated Eddie Murphy movie.
You need to go back to that one. I haven't seen it since I saw it.
I mean, that's Jonathan Lynn, who directed My Cousin Vinny. It was his follow-up to My Cousin Vinny. It's a better movie than people give it credit for. I really enjoy that film. So having said that, this movie comes out in 98, okay?
Yeah.
I'm 20 years old. I'm not invested in politics. I mean, Clinton's president at the time, okay? But I'm just not in. 20-year-old me is not invested. But still rather enjoyed this movie. But years later, I probably watched this once every 2 years. I watch this film. I like to revisit it because I love the process. And then I did eventually get the book that this is based on. That was Joe Klein, which was about the Clintons. Mm-hmm. And you'll be happy to know that the book, if you haven't read it, literally opens up with the monologue about the different handshakes. Yeah. So that's pulled directly from the book. And I really enjoyed that. But we're talking about John Travolta. I have said this before. I'll say it again. It's one of the best performances he's ever given.
I agree. Yeah.
And it's that's with an asterisk because his character, I want to be clear about this. Character is kind of a despicable person in the movie. And
and I love how the movie is having a conversation with itself and with the viewer about, how much of despicable behavior should we allow for the quote unquote greater good? Is it just this, thing that's kind of unavoidable with people of great power, that they're going to have faults like this? And yeah, it's and also just like a person that you want to like you, and how you're willing to put up with being lied to and manipulated and things like that. And it's so good. Did Elaine May write this movie? I think she did.
I can pull that up. I've got that information.
Because if she did, that makes a lot of damn
she did. Yeah, this was a screenplay by Elaine May based on Primary Colors by Joe Klein.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, when Primary Colors, the book came out, it was anonymous for the first few years. So I remember that. The Clintons, they did not like the fact that this book had been written. So
I can't imagine.
I can't imagine why. So Elaine May wrote this, and you can tell, because Elaine May, for those who know, Elaine May and Mike Nichols, they have a shared working history that goes back 30, 40 years. I mean, they've been collaborators for the longest time. So Mike Nichols is no longer with us. Elaine May is 93 years old, and what a career they both had.
I got to give a shout out to an Elaine May movie real quick.
Okay.
I just did a run of her filmography as a director. The Music Box Theater in Chicago did a series. The Heartbreak Kid, the Charles Grodin Sybil Shepherd, is one of the funniest movies I've ever seen in my entire life. And it's another movie similar to Chains of Gold that does not have a good physical release.
Okay.
And desperately needs it. But it's on YouTube if you want to seek it out.
All right, The Heartbreak Kid.
Yeah.
I've actually have not seen that, so I'm going to put that on my list. I'm excited to watch that.
Yeah.
Watching, and we don't really talk politics on the DanaBuckler show. It's just a personal choice that I've made living in this incredibly polarized country that we live in. I just choose not to really go in either direction. But since we're talking about one of the great political movies of all time, all I want to say is Jack Stanton, for as despicable as he is, has that charisma that I don't think we really see in politicians anymore. No. I don't think we see it. And I'm not talking about left or right. I'm just saying this is the type of politician, and Travolta pulls it off so well that he can go into a room filled with Republicans and go to a room filled with Democrats, and he'll be shaking hands. They'll all want to shake his hand by the time it's over with, because that type of politician just knows how to operate in any circumstance. And I remember watching this the other day and just saying, we don't have politicians like that anymore. We have politicians that attack each other.
One thing that I took away from primary colors in 2025 that I maybe didn't in 1998. And it's just because I have 27 years under my belt of knowing of being burned by public figures,
Yeah.
I guess, that I believed in, is that it's okay to believe in a politician or to really kind of become an ally of them or a supporter of them. Or you could even say that about an entertainer or like
Yeah.
an athlete. But you gotta be careful. And when I say be careful, it's just they're human beings. And, just like a regular human being could really disappoint you, like somebody, especially at that stage, can really, really disappoint you. And you can be laid flat if you let it.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well said. I won't even go any further than that. That was well said. So, Adam, that was a fantastic list.
Thanks.
I enjoyed revisiting a lot of these films, and in the case of Chains of Gold, I really enjoyed just, look, we watch a lot of movies.
Yeah.
We do podcasts and write reviews and articles and for websites and stuff. Like, it's what we do. So every once in a while, when one of these movies falls through the cracks, like it does, and it happens to all of us, to be able to watch it and just be like, wow, how did I never see this before? And that was Chains of Gold. So I've seen everything else on the list multiple times, but that was the first time watch. So I my hat is off to you. Thank you for essentially introducing me to this film.
No, you're welcome. And yeah, I'm at the stage now with revisiting Travolta's movies where there's some I haven't seen in like 20 years and I need to go back to. So like before I did this ranking, I mean, I haven't seen Hairspray since 2007. I haven't seen General's Daughter since 1999. I haven't seen even Wild Hog since '07. I know one of my friend's sons has seen Bolt 50 times, so that's got to be saying something. So yeah, I'm obviously these lists are fluid and everything like that, and they could change at any time. But I guess under the pretense of like giving this audience some recommendations of movies to seek out, these are 10 really, really strong ones.
Excellent. So I'm going to just mention, I want to just call out again a movie that you mentioned at the beginning of the episode, and that is Mobland. I know that's not part of the 11 through 20, but again, I just want to mention that film just because I think it's great, and I think everyone should also listen to the episode where Nicholas Maggio talks about it. If listeners out there, if you're new to this show, the John Travolta episode, we're going to scroll back a little bit. I re-released it back in 2022, so it's, if you just go into your search box, DanaBuckler Show, John Travolta, you'll be able to find that episode. And I'll do one better than that. I'll put a link in this episode show notes to both times John has been on the show. Once we had a nice hour and 40-minute interview, and then he came back on in 2023 to talk about his movie The Shepherd, which was a short film that was on Disney Plus, and I'm hoping to have John back on the show again in a sooner than later type of scenario.
I want to give a quick shout out. I just remembered this to a documentary that he's in for maybe 30 seconds.
Okay.
But I think it's a terrific documentary, especially one of my weird, like, kind of movie things is I love restaurant documentaries.
Okay.
There's a restaurant documentary called Off the Menu: The Last Days of Chasen's.
Okay.
And John Travolta's only in it because the farewell event was the wrap party or like the post-Oscar party the year Pulp Fiction was up for its awards. And he's there, and like Quentin Tarantino's there, and a lot of like Hollywood celebrities who attended the event are there. But it's a great documentary about it's told mainly from like the bartender and the server's perspective, about what the restaurant means, and they have great stories because it's like this old Hollywood restaurant and bar. It's on YouTube, or you could buy it. I bought it off of eBay on disc it was kind of expensive, but it is on YouTube. I would highly recommend that.
And it's called The Last Days, or what's the of Chase? What's it called?
It's called Off the Menu.
Off the Menu.
The subtitle is like The Last Days of Chasen.
Okay, I'm all over that. Okay, I'm obviously somebody who works in the restaurant field. I'm all about that. Can't wait to see that.
Yeah, I think you would really like it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. So, Adam, if people want to keep up with you, of course, they can find you on the F This Movie podcast, which, again, I just want to tell you, every time it drops on Wednesday, I see your name on there. Big smile on my face pops up. All right.
I will be back on the show that's dropping on Wednesday, the 21st.
Okay. All right.
So me and Patrick are talking about a half dozen movies where the only common thread is that they were Snapcase DVDs. I love this. Because we have a recurring bit where we talk about a Snapcase movie and we call it Oh Snap, and now this episode is Oops, All Snaps.
Okay, I love that. Excellent. I am a proud Patreon supporter of F This Movie, and I know you guys have done some episodes on there, so I would always recommend people check that out. Of course, Adam, you have a weekly YouTube show called Reserve Seating. If you could tell viewers a little bit about that. I've been lucky to be a guest a few times on that show. I love it.
Yeah, we need to have you back soon. That show is just a weekly YouTube series. It's about 20-minute videos, and we usually have like a theme month. So like we just wrapped up a month covering 4 movies from the Sight and Sound poll. We're going to have a June-sploitation in June, so that's going to be focused on exploitation movies. Currently, we're doing a mailbag episode coming up next week. So if you have any questions or movie-related topics you'd like to ask us, you can follow me on Blue Sky at riskyadam.bluesky.social.
Excellent.
So you can find me there too.
Excellent. And I will include links on YouTube as well, so people can check out Reserve Seating.
Thank you.
Well, listen, Adam, it's like, we don't talk. We don't do a show for a little over a year, and we pick it up like, it was 2 days ago.
No, totally. No, thanks for having me on the show.
Man.
This was a real delight. Like, I love talking about John Travolta's filmography and his movies. And if you have I would recommend this to anybody. Like, if you have a favorite actor, just choose 10 movies of theirs at random, and it gives you like such an interesting perspective on the craft of acting.
Yeah.
And just how different they can be in their performances and yet have kind of a unique persona that they carry from film to film.
And well said. And I want to close with John Travolta, to me, is a movie star. And we live in a world where, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of movie stars anymore. When I was a kid in the 90s, we would see a movie based on who was in it, not what was the movie about. We would say to our friends, what are you doing this weekend? I'm seeing the new Travolta film. I'm seeing the new Julia Roberts movie. I'm going to see the new Tom Hanks movie. I miss those days of it didn't matter what the movie was. You saw it because of who was in it. And John Travolta was the king of, he's in the movie, I'm going to see it sight unseen. And that still holds true to this day. So whenever he has something new out, doesn't matter what it is, I will take the time and I will watch it because he's a movie star.
Yeah, very, very well said.
So, perfect. Well, Adam, thank you, my friend. Thank you for doing this.
No, thank you. Loved being on here and talking about my favorite actor and some of my favorite movies.
Well, we'll have to do this again. Of course, we're going to do this again.
Sure.
We'll have to set something up, is what I mean. We'll have to set up another date, but not a year from now. Once again, a big thank you to Adam Riske from F This Movie for being on the show. And you can find me on Instagram at the DanaBuckler. I'm still on X, but not for long, at DanaBuckler Show. I am on Blue Sky. Just signed up because I saw Adam and Patrick had migrated over there, and I was like, well, I have to do that as well. So I am on Blue Sky. And I have a Facebook group called The DanaBuckler Show. So other than that, please email me, thedanabucklershow@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening.